Mr. Speaker, I beg to move. The advantages of public transport are evident for all to see, especially when we compare it to the most popular alternative, which is the use of private vehicles. Public transport is an essential part of a strong economy as it allows people to access jobs, education and health services. It also reduces congestion and allows goods and services to gain access to essential markets. It is estimated that congestion costs the economy millions of pounds a year, and with Belfast being one of the most car-dependent cities in Europe, it makes sense that we look at the direct and indirect benefits that encouraging public transport usage would bring. There are the most obvious benefits of using public transport, such as better air quality in the local environment and energy conservation. And this is because a single bus will emit fewer fumes than 20 cars combined, while train emissions of carbon dioxide for every passenger kilometre travelled are, on average, approximately half that of car travel. And using public transport reduces the amount of energy consumed per person per kilometre, as public transport uses significantly less energy than comparable travel by private car. In Northern Ireland, transport accounts for 25% of all greenhouse gas emissions, so this is surely a good reason to tackle this area. Public transport can also positively influence both personal safety and personal gain. Firstly, by using the bus or train, you're directly reducing the number of private cars on the school run. This in turn reduces congestion at and around the school gates and makes it a healthier and safer environment for pupils and staff. This is illustrated by the fact that the accident rate for children aged up to 15 increases during the period from 8 till 9 a.m. in the morning peak and at around 3 p.m. in the afternoon peak. On a general note, statistics have shown that using the bus is 7 times safer than a private car, while taking the train is 15 times safer than using a private car. Taking a bus or train instead of a car also increases physical activity, so much so that the average person drops more than 6 pounds in as little as a year. In fact, recent research has suggested that increasing the use of public transport could improve health and lower obesity levels. The average 9-minute walk to and from bus and train stops for a young person has the capacity to account for almost a third of their recommended daily exercise requirements. As the majority of people who use public transport tend to walk to and from the bus stop or train station, encouraging the use of public transport can ensure children build physical activity into their daily routine. Using public transport can also improve our children's confidence, as they have more interaction with members of the local community and will gain valuable road safety skills. It can also reduce stress and can be an enjoyable time to spend talking with friends, reading or listening to music. Since 1997, free home-to-school transport is only provided to a child travelling more than the qualifying distance to the nearest suitable school, rather than originally what was the school of choice. There has been a resultant 10% increase in the number of children driven to school, and that means that 2 in 5 children are now being driven to school. And this fact was supported by some House of Commons research, which found that a reduction in free bus travel resulted in an increase in the number of car journeys. For those of us who commute, we know how we enjoy the school holidays when traffic is so much lighter. Indeed, 20% of cars on roads in urban areas at morning peak time of 8:50 a.m. are taking children to school. This not only increases congestion, but as I've said, reduces road safety. It also increases travel time and can affect the quality of life in the local community by impacting on people's work-life balance. Getting a child to school safely and on time can be a challenge. Some children are eligible, as I've said, for assistance from their local education and library board, and those children with disabilities or special educational needs do get extra help. Currently, the eligibility distance is 2 miles for primary pupils and 3 for post-primary pupils, and is measured by the shortest route along which a child, accompanied as necessary, can walk with reasonable safety. It is the responsibility of parents residing under the qualifying distance to determine whatever method they consider most appropriate to deliver their child to and from school. Unfortunately for many parents, they feel that the private car is a cheaper and more convenient way than paying for public transport for their children. And when you have more than one child to transport, this rationale is multiplied. Could this be part of the reason why 63% of car journeys in Northern Ireland are of less than 5 miles, and nearly 1/5 of all journeys are less than 1 mile? These types of journeys are also the least efficient for a car, as a cold engine uses almost twice as much fuel as one that has warmed up. And with the continual rise in petrol and diesel prices in Northern Ireland, along with all these other reasons, we get a lot of communication from constituents requesting free public transport for all school children. In order to fully assess the potential benefits of free public transport for all school children, it's worth looking at the costs of the current setup to the Department of Education. In 2012-13, £74 million was spent transporting approximately 90,000 Northern Ireland pupils from home to school and back, with payments to TransLink accounting for 43.8% of the total home-to-school transport budget. There are also payments to private providers, taxis and for board buses for services out with the current TransLink routes. And the recent efficiency review has highlighted where savings could be made in these areas. Savings can also be made, for example, in the controlled and maintained sectors who largely employ different school buses, even though as a result they pass each other sometimes half empty. For those children who are able to use the current TransLink routes, around 48,250 post-primary students avail of sessional passes each year at an average cost to the Department of £31.6 million, or around £655 per head. What is concerning is that the average annual cost of administering the operational arrangements for this scheme is around £1.85 million, or if members would care to indulge me for just a moment, the administrative costs are equivalent to an extra 2,825 school children receiving a free bus pass. This figure does not surprise me when we consider the cost and time taken for the board to commission an exact measurement over a 3-mile route and then argue about 50 yards, with the result that in one specific street one child receives a bus pass and the child 2 doors up doesn't. And then there's the cost of dealing with appealed decisions, and I'm quite sure that every member here can share their experiences of this process. Should the Department not consider cutting the costs of administering the system, of assessing and issuing sessional passes, and use those savings towards allowing all children in school uniform to have free access to public transport? Recently, when I asked the Regional Development Minister what consideration he might give to extending free public transport to all school children, in a similar vein to what is currently on offer to our over 60s, the Minister somewhat unsurprisingly referred to current budget pressures as the reason why he would not be in a position to extend free public transport to all school children. He did, of course, refer me to the Education Minister as a reasonable alternative. However, in recognition that school transport is not a core objective of the education sector, with the money spent on school transport reducing the amount available for the classroom, my motion today does not call upon the Minister for Education in isolation. And I believe it's not unreasonable to ask that both the Regional Development Minister and the Education Minister collectively consider a feasibility study into the provision of free public transport for school children, taking into account the differences between urban and rural needs. When assessing which pupils currently are eligible for transport assistance, a suitable school is defined solely as one in the recognised categories of controlled, integrated, Irish medium, maintained, denominational or non-denominational grammar. The categories do not extend to take account of other factors such as the range or nature of the curriculum provided, proficiency in certain subjects, or single-sex or co-educational schools. And preferences expressed on these or similar grounds do not currently qualify for transport assistance if an otherwise suitable school exists within the statutory walking distance. We recognise that in the next few years there will continue to be a wide variety of school types in Northern Ireland, and parental choice is important. And until there is more integration in our schools, we must recognise that limiting choice of school to the nearest suitable school means that those who live next to each other are also more likely to be schooled together. And while schooling children locally can strengthen communities, given the level of segregation in our housing, this is a worrying trend. And it may mean that only those who can afford to travel will have the choice to operate outside a postcode lottery. Sharing between schools is already becoming more commonplace due to the entitlement framework, which allows wider choice of subjects to pupils. However, this is placing additional burdens on budgets, as children are often transported between schools and taxis. A feasibility study should therefore examine when a child has chosen a school which delivers all subjects on site but is not their closest school, what are the costs of a free bus pass for that child in comparison to the costs associated with travelling between schools and taxis a few times per week in order to access their subject choice? Is that more expensive? Also, as we know, not all learning takes place inside the classroom, and there are many benefits associated with extracurricular activities. There's many instances where the current school transport setup allocates a place on a bus which leaves at a certain time and means that
The member's
pupils
time is almost up.
cannot attend such activities. Today I'm calling on the Ministers to conduct a feasibility study into providing the free transport for all school pupils, and I hope members will support the motion. Thank you.